June 6, 2014 study session to order. I'd like to have a moment of silence in respect for our veterans who are celebrating the 70th anniversary of the greatest battle ever fought. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Leitner? Here. Commissioner Lechka?
Here.
Commissioner Rice?
Here.
Commissioner Duckham?
Here.
Commissioner Alexander?
Present.
Commissioner Mahoney? Commissioner Palachuk?
Here.
Commissioner Elwell?
Here.
Chairman Shotwell?
Here.
8 present.
We've arrived at the first opportunity for public comment. If you'd like to step forward and address the board, please do. Please remember you have 5 minutes, and the Board of Commissioners will not enter into any debate with you. We'll be happy to direct your questions to the Deputy Administrator, and we will return answers to you. Public comment, please. Seeing no public comment, Mr. Administrator, your meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First up, we have the Sheriff's Department with a burn grant, but I don't see the Undersheriff here. He said he might be a little late. So with that, I think we'll move on to Honeywell. And Dick, if you'd like to step up to the podium and begin your presentation. Adam, do you need to cue the system for them? Oh, looks like it's up.
Good morning. It's great to be back in Jackson. I grew up here in Jackson, Michigan, attended high school here, and had the blessing of be able to, my brothers and sisters, live here and grow up here. Today I'd like to make 3 key points in our presentation. We're from Honeywell. We've been working with the county now for about 7 months, and the 3 key points I'd like to make is that we've done our homework, our solutions will work, and it makes sense financially for the county. Years ago, we had the opportunity to go on a vacation when our kids were young. I have 4 children that are now all grown. We always vacationed in Port Austin on the tip of the thumb there. And when we got back from vacation, we stopped off at a 7-Eleven store to get milk and bread for our kids because we needed to buy that for their lunches. I went to the line. I went to pull out my wallet, and I realized I didn't have any money. So I said, well, wait a minute. I'm going to go out to the car and ask my wife for money. Well, I asked her, and sure enough, I went out. She checked her purse, and she didn't have money either. So I had to go back in, tell the clerk that, I didn't have any money. But I remembered that back home I had a sock drawer, and in my sock drawer was a couple of $20 bills. So I ran home, which was like a block from the 7-Eleven, got the $20, came back and bought the milk and bread. The reason why I tell you that story is that's basically what our services will do for Jackson County, is identify your sock drawer to help you fund stuff that you need for basically your family or your buildings, in this case your buildings. So today what I'd like to do is walk through the agenda here. Basically there's the bullet points there to illustrate the points. The first 3 things is just show you some of the homework. The next 2 bullets is more about the scope of work and how the solution will work, and then financially how it will make sense. We'll get into the financial things, and then we'll open it up to any questions. What happened? So anyway, well, that's just to tell you a little bit about Honeywell. We've been around for almost 130 years. Our company has a lot of experience in the industry of doing energy performance contracting. We represent the dedicated business unit of Honeywell's Energy Solutions Group. And we've done over 5,000 of these contracts throughout the United States. In Michigan, we've had experience of doing about 150 programs, and a lot of them with your neighbors. We've done Ypsilanti, we've done Calhoun County, we've done the city of Battle Creek, we did city of Albion, we did city of Lansing. So a lot of the experience that we've had has been right here, you know, right around Jackson. It was real exciting for me to come home to work on this project for Jackson County. The next slide there represents our experience. What we do is we try to exceed expectations, and basically some of the accounts in different years of the guarantee, because we're actually guaranteeing energy savings and operational savings to fund your project. You'll see that the red bar represents the actual savings that we achieved for that specific account, and the blue bar is where our guarantee was. So you see, when you look at this chart, that many of these, your neighbors, that we've exceeded what we told them that we were going to do in terms of savings. Now, from here, I'm going to turn it over to my engineer, Nelson Brico, who did the energy audit, and he'll walk you through some of the homework that was done to do the energy audit that we did for the county on your facilities.
Dick, while you're on this, while you're standing there for this particular slide, what occurred to me when I looked at the slide was you showed us all communities where you've done projects and your savings exceeded what your expectation. Have there been, out of that 150, have there been somewhere you did not meet your expectations?
Yes, there have been some that have not met expectations, and what has happened on those is we had to write a check. One was like the city of Livonia on a project. We did about...
So the guarantee, you had to make good on your guarantee?
We had to make good on our guarantee, because basically we guarantee that the savings will fund the project each year, and then we do a reconciliation each year. If we fall short of what we guarantee, then we actually write a check back to the municipality.
I bring that up just because I think that's a key element of this project, is the fact that they've studied us, they've made it an educated guess on what they believe the savings will be, and they're going to use this. We use the savings to help fund the project, and if those savings don't materialize, Honeywell has to write a check for that amount that they estimated. So just keep that in your mind as you're going through this. Thank you, Dick.
Yep.
Okay. So I was the engineer. My name is Nelson Brico. I started doing the surveys of the buildings, reviewing utility bills. We've got a mammoth spreadsheet that I sent to Rick that he can provide. But we looked at a 3-year history of all your utility bills to understand where in your facilities are you spending the money, where in the county is the money being spent in terms of utility costs. The second thing that we look at is where in the life cycle of your equipment, is the equipment. You may have, some buildings where you don't spend too much money, but you've got, equipment that's been deferred over time, so it may be in need of replacement. So we try and balance the energy savings aspect of it with the requirements for really repair and maintenance costs that you may not spend too much on energy, like I said, but your repair and maintenance costs for a certain facility may be getting up there because equipment's starting to break down and things like that. So we benchmarked your facilities energy-wise and compared them to other facilities, and that's kind of how we understand where we think we can get from an energy saving standpoint. Once we identify exactly which scope of work the county wants to move forward with, then we'll really dig into exactly what those energy savings are and what the cost for the improvements will be. At this point, it's, we feel very confident, plus or minus 10%. We've benchmarked against other facilities of similar types, and we know that we can achieve those savings. So, what we're going to show you here is we feel pretty comfortable about. I'm just going to go through the existing conditions for the county facilities, mainly the ones that have a lot of deferred maintenance backlog, capital cost avoidance improvements that are needed from an HVAC standpoint. The first slide here is the tower building. You can see on the upper left corner, you've got a boiler that was installed in 2000, 2001. It's a steam boiler, provides steam to the building. The bottom left corner there, you've got a steam unit heaters, radiators, basically that's your means of heating the building. The upper right corner, you've got a programmable thermostat. You don't have a central air handling system in this building to provide ventilation throughout the building. Certain floors have, air conditioning units where they've been added over time as air conditioning was needed. And you see on the bottom right corner there, those are your air-cooled condensing units. So there's not a central system, so you've got kind of onesie-twosie throughout the building. And that's not the most efficient way to operate. A central system would be the most cost-effective way to operate your building. Between the tower building and the courthouse, the county spends about $1.8 million in utility costs per year. The tower and the courthouse account for about 20% of that. So the next building, the courthouse, you've got the upper left-hand corner. There's 3 boilers that serve the courthouse. Again, same thing here. Air conditioning has been added over time. Equipment's getting old. There's no central system. There's no control system either in the tower building or the courthouse. And there's no means of being able to set temperatures back at night. So you're operating the facility as though it is a 24-hour facility. So you're always heating, you're always cooling. The bottom left corner there, you've got condensing units that are along the wall, outside wall at the courthouse. Again, no central system there. If you look on the bottom center there, there's a boiler feed tank. It's a steam boiler, so it collects all the condensate and pumps it back into the boiler. You can see that that's kind of looks a little old. Upper right-hand corner, you've got a multi-zone air handling unit. That's not the most efficient way to provide air to spaces. That serves the courthouse. The courtrooms. And on the bottom right, you've got multiple air handlers throughout the building as well, where you're satisfying cooling needs as they were needed. So over time, you just kind of continued to add air conditioning as it was needed. The Wesley Street Jail, upper left-hand corner, you've got newer boilers that serve the entire building. Bottom left, there you've got some condensing units that were installed, I believe in 2003 when there was an addition done to the building. Bottom right corner, you can see that's a very old piece of equipment from the 70s. There was a renovation done in the 70s as well where new air handlers were put in for the barracks. And then the upper right-hand corner, that's an air-cooled chiller. So in this building, you do have a central heating and cooling system for the most part, but you've got equipment that's from the 1970s. The youth center, if you look at the top left there are self-contained rooftop units that provide cooling and ventilation to the sleeping quarters. The bottom picture there just shows kind of where the air is introduced into the spaces. And then the top right is just the programmable thermostats for the office areas. Channer Road Jail, so that facility was built in 2003, I believe. There are multiple rooftop units that are on grade. The county has already started to experience issues with those rooftop units and has already replaced one of the rooftop units and has budgeted to replace rooftop units in the future as well. The system design, it's probably sufficient for what's there, but things are starting to fail. The Human Services Building, so renovations also were done in 2003, I believe. There you've got a heat pump system. It's a great energy design. The county has had some issues though with the cooling tower, and so that needs to be replaced, along with the condenser water pumps, which pump water to all the heat pumps. Those are oversized originally, and so the pumps are starting to cavitate, so that's something that we're looking at maybe trying to replace and get better design for those. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what's in your facilities. I don't know if many of you have actually walked and seen the HVAC equipment. I mean, that's probably something that's nobody thinks about until it breaks down, right? It's warm, it's hot, it's cold. But we put together a life cycle analysis. Just basically, we cataloged all of the equipment in your facilities, and these are the main facilities that we looked at that really have a deferred maintenance backlog. So you can see the light blue is the rated system life. We take the average life of the equipment, so we look at boilers, air handlers, things like that. And the dark blue, that's kind of how much life has been used up by the equipment. So you can see, for example, the courthouse, your useful life was close to 19 years, and you're almost at an aggregate, you're almost at that 19th year. So you're at the point where it may make sense to start replacing that equipment. Oops. Sorry. The tower building, same thing. You can see 18-year life, and you're at year 14. So you can kind of see across the board there, a lot of the equipment in the buildings has come to close to its useful life. And the nice thing about an energy project is you're not going to replace equipment like for like. So like, for example, in this building, as I explained, you've added air conditioning as time went on. There's no central system. You're running air conditioning in the middle of the winter time because there's no means of bringing fresh air in to cool spaces, right? So what do you have to do in order to cool? You've got to use mechanical cooling. So with the new energy design, you're actually able to incorporate, energy conservation measures and have more comfortable buildings and more efficient buildings, plus give you a new life cycle on all of your equipment. So we looked at everything in all your facilities, from lighting improvements, water improvements, building envelope improvements, which means weather stripping doors, caulking around windows, window replacements. So we assessed many different things, and this is a list of the things that we recommend moving forward with as far as a project goes. So first item, interior and exterior lighting improvements. There's been a great advantage of going from high pressure sodium exterior fixtures to LED. Consumers Energy offers rebates that the county can take advantage of, which the county has already taken advantage of in some of the improvements that have been done, like with occupancy sensors and things like that. Gosh. Also interior, there are means of delamping fixtures. Some fixtures, for example, may have 4 lamps. You can go down to 2 and put reflectors in there as an example. You get the same light output for half the energy cost for that fixture. But we've done a full analysis, a room-by-room study of every single room in the county, and we've cataloged all the equipment, all the lighting, and we've looked at burn hours as well, because where your savings comes from with lighting is how much power are you drawing, and then what are the hours that it runs. That's basically how you get to your consumption. So we've looked at all that, and we've got a plan in place that will improve the lighting in the facilities and save energy. Building envelope improvements, we've done a survey of all the facilities as well. We look at roof wall intersections, where is air being infiltrated into the building where it doesn't need to be. You'd rather filter the air, put it through a mechanical system to introduce fresh air to buildings. Weather stripping around doors, weather stripping around, or caulking around windows. So we've done a full survey of that as well. Window replacement at the courthouse. Windows don't typically have a great payback, but we understood from the county staff that it is an issue. Windows don't close all the way. It's uncomfortable for occupants, so we looked at also window replacements. Water conservation fixture replacements, just going from like 3.5 gallons per flush toilets down to 1.6, going from 2.0 gallon per minute aerators on faucets down to 0.5 gallons per minute. So you get water savings and you get gas savings, because when you're using hot water, you're using less of it. Cooling tower replacement. So the system at the Human Services Building, it uses a cooling tower to reject heat. That system has degraded over time, and so that's something that, in order for the heat pump system to operate, that cooling tower has to be functioning. The condenser pump replacement, as I had mentioned, that pump was a little oversized to begin with. It's been throttled back, but there's still not enough pressure in the system to make it operate correctly, so you kind of have some cavitation. So we would want to right-size the pump and make sure that it's going to operate more efficiently and reliably. Elevator controls. We know that in this building, elevators are sometimes chasing each other. The equipment is from the 1920s, 30s. I think it's original to the buildings. So, for a facility like this, if the elevator controls go down, you're going to have some issues, right? Energy efficient HVAC system redesign. So that's mainly in 6 buildings. The 2 that, need it the most would probably be the Tower Building and the courthouse. But in addition to that, we look at the Wesley Street Jail, the Youth Center, the Channer Road Jail, and the airport. And then temperature controls upgrade. So if we're going to put in this beautiful energy efficient HVAC system, right? We need something that's going to control it. And not only control it, but give you the capability to be able to dial in the middle of the night to make sure equipment's actually being turned off, to make sure temperatures are setting back, to flag any alarms. If there's an alarm that comes up in a building, you don't want to find out the next morning when the building's freezing. You want to find out in the middle of the night. So, kind of like at the Human Services Building, a control system where you can remotely log in and check temperatures, check things like that, to make sure that the building's going to be operable the next morning.
If I may chime in. Am I on? Yeah. At the courthouse, we're talking about replacing windows as well, and that they don't generally have a huge payback. They are huge savings. That's a key, because what we've done in this program that they're going to, when they get to the numbers, you'll start to see it more fully, is some things pay for themselves. There's no doubt. Over time, they'll pay for themselves in the energy savings. Some things, like those windows, they really don't. The payback is so far out, you may not live long enough to see it. You pool those projects together, so when you get to the numbers and you say, wait a minute, I thought this was free. Well, no, because we're adding in projects that do not pay for themselves, and we're having those projects that do help pay for the ones that do not. So just a note, keep in mind, please.
So any questions on the scope or the facilities before I turn it back to Dick?
I spoke of the milk and bread story, the sock drawer. This is your sock drawer here, the funding mechanism that you see there. Basically, this is where we got all the bills to see what you're currently spending as a county for all your facilities. And the cost center is listed there on the left. The next column is the current expenditure in those cost centers. And then the third column is what it would drop down to with the Honeywell program implemented. And then the difference between those columns is the last column, which is the funding stream that would be guaranteed by Honeywell each year to help fund the project. You can see that the green, we denoted the green as these are items that are currently in your budget. The first category is red because this is not in your budget, but this is the value of all your mechanical and electrical systems in all of your facilities. They're about a $21 million value. And over the next 15-year period, you're going to be realizing these expenditures are going to come up anyway. And what we're saying is we can proactively address that rather than being reactive and waiting for them to fail, those systems, because we already know they're past their life cycle. Why not, like Mike pointed out, why not use the energy efficiency that you can save now and get a lot of these things replaced proactively rather than waiting for them to fail. Total you see listed there is, boy, my eyes are, what does that say? The total savings is about $440,000 in terms of your available funds, and then through your capital funding, you've been averaging over the last 3 years about $375,000, and what that money has been used for is for the reactive replacements of pieces of equipment as they have failed. So if you add those together, you can see over $800,000 of funding to proactively get all this work done that possibly could be done for the county. We basically came up with 3 programs. We obviously could do multiple different combinations of programs, but basically the base program is the program that represents the best opportunity to create the most savings to address the needs that we know are the 2 most needed facilities, which is this facility, the tower facility, and the courthouse. You can see, though, that on this chart that, as Nelson described, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but the check marks, these are all the things. We're doing energy improvements. Energy improvements will touch literally every county facility. And you can see that on the first, few lines there. And then the big thing is, the big cost is this facility and the courthouse replacing the elevator systems, the HVAC systems, and the window systems at the courthouse would be included in this project. Now, how this would fund is, the next step would be to go through your registered financial advisor, municipal advisor, for them to come up with the best way to fund it. But typically, how other counties have done it, like Lenawee County, Calhoun County, and Muskegon County, projects we did with them, is they basically did a capital improvement note or bond. And to do that, you would have to go out and do a 45-day notice of intent that goes along with that, but your financial advisor would come up with that. So projecting what it would look like from a cost standpoint, you see under the base program what the potential cost is in the blue box is a little over $5 million, or a little over $14 million, and then the rebates, that's the money that would be projected that Consumers Energy would refund back to you for installing this energy improvements. We would handle all the applications, all the paperwork to get all that stuff done. They would fund that back to you for installing that work. So your net project cost would be $14.6 million, and then the estimated savings would be $363,000 on operational and $363 on energy and $417 on operational. And then the support services is for our support to guarantee the savings each year. We need to constantly be knowing what's going on in the facility, so we're going to be having engineers look at your facilities constantly, dialing in, making sure that everything is working and functioning properly. We're going to be doing measurement and verification of the savings each year, and that's where if we're not making a guarantee, we want to know about it like every month as it goes on. We don't want to wait till the end of the year and then have to basically write a check. So if there's corrective actions that need to be done, we'll be in there making those corrective actions before we have to issue a check. So that's part of the service that's done each year. What a lot of the counties and cities do is after so many years of seeing good results, then that could be canceled at any time. It's an annual service agreement that would be done. You see the dollars that's listed there under the support services. The lease rate over a 20-year bond is projected to be 3.75, or the bond rate, and then the payments per year would be 1, and then we use the inflation factor of 4%. So basically you have 3 major columns underneath: the annual investment, the annual savings, and the cash flow. So basically what you need to do is, you look at, for instance, on year 1, you add those across between the installment, the purchase payment for the bond note, and you add that to the support services. That would be $1 million payment each year. And then you see, your next column, savings, you add those together and subtract the totals from each other, and then you get your cash flow. And then if you do the 4% inflation and you go all the way down to your right-hand box in the bottom, you see that you've funded all this work and you're still generating a positive savings of almost $2.5 million, $2.4 million in the bottom right-hand corner. So you're getting all this work done proactively, and then you're using a lot of the energy savings and the operational savings to pay for it, and you still have almost $2.5 million ahead of the game. And you've got new systems and the facilities, at least here at the courthouse and the tower facility, will be much more comfortable. The next program No, we're not saying that. What we're saying, there's a life cycle of that equipment, and right now you're realizing that you're having some of those that you're having to replace. The stuff that we would be replacing would be all the old stuff that's past its useful life. And then what we would be doing is the typical life on a new system is about 25 the 25-year period that you would have, not a 15-year period. So,
The one thing, like, for example, at the Human Services Building, so you do have the heat pumps that are in the facility, those are operating still. The cooling tower is what has failed, so that's what has to be replaced. We'd look at different energy designs for the different buildings. We'd look at what the most cost-effective system to implement is, plus the energy savings, which one's going to get us the best energy savings. And then balance the two systems, balance those two together. So we may not look at doing a heat pump system there, or in this facility. We may be looking at just a boiler, a chiller, and some fan coil units, let's say, for example. That will probably give you a 25-year life cycle. So there may be components that fail over time, but it won't be complete system-wide replacement like you have to do now. Yes.
I understand the energy savings. Could you define your definition of operational savings?
yep, the operational savings is, if you go back to the, that self-funding model that was there, right there, you look at the categories of the stuff that's not energy that's listed there in green. That's the operational savings, what you're spending on maintenance and repair, what you're spending on lighting costs for lamps and ballasts that you're replacing. The lights that we would put in now would have like 80,000 hour rated life to them before the bulbs would burn out. So that would, that would totally reduce a lot of the cost for the lighting. A lot of the parking lot lights that we would be putting in would be LED, which would last, up to 15 to 20 year period. So you wouldn't have to realize all the costs of doing that. Now, we didn't put any cost savings in there for your staff that now currently has to go out, just to change like a basic, lamps if they fail, or a ballast. It would be like a half-hour job by the time they set the ladder up and do that. We didn't factor any of that in. This is actual cost for the supplies and the materials that you're using for the maintenance, repair, and lighting.
And with that, I'd want to chime in and just point out, though, that there are real dollar costs to labor. As everybody knows, we've continually cut facilities. Frankly, in my mind, we've probably cut them too far, but we still don't have the budget to make up any of that. So this allows them to be more productive because they're not having to go out and, as Dick says, replace a light bulb. And while it may sound pretty simple to come in and replace one of these, just a simple ballast in one of these things here, it's pretty much, it can be a half-an-hour job. Now, that sounds a little mundane or a little strange, but think about it for a minute, because I know I had to. The facilities guys, they have to go get a ladder in the basement, get a bulb or a ballast, bring it up to whatever floor, they work around the people there, change it out, take it, and then put the ladder and the tools back away. It's easy when you do things piecemeal on the fly in an emergency situation, because the room is now dark or whatever the case may be, or if it's a furnace that went out in the wintertime. When a furnace goes out in the wintertime, guys, we pretty much have to operate on an emergency basis. We need to get it fixed immediately. We pay top dollar for that. Again, those are all not necessarily savings that these guys show, but they're savings that are really true to us as far as our employees and stuff like that goes.
Just like some clarification regarding to your building envelope improvements. Now, obviously, right now we're doing a lot of, for instance, spot cooling, if you will, spot heating. You can go through this building, or you can go through the courthouse, for example, in the middle of the winter. And some of the rooms will be so hot that they'll have their windows open in the wintertime to let the winter air in to cool the room down, or in the summertime it can be so cold they have their windows open so the heat from the outdoors comes in. So obviously that's not very efficient. But when you say envelope, we also know that whether it's a roof, whether it's the walls, okay, you lose a lot of energy and cost through the walls, through the roof, and other places. So just to, for instance, replace windows is one thing, and obviously a system that is controlled certainly would be more efficient. But again, once again, if you don't have enough insulation in the walls, if you don't have enough insulation in the ceilings, if you don't have proper, I can go on and on and on, it's still going to be going out out of the building. So have you specifically looked at that and where we stand as far as all of our buildings?
Yeah, so we typically look at building envelope, everything, but, roof wall intersections, as I mentioned, windows, doors, the walls, it's, given the design of the building, I mean, in order to put more insulation into the walls, we, have to be taking walls down. It's just not cost effective. Typically what we would do is make sure that we design an HVAC system where you're putting diffusers close to walls if we know that there are cold spots, right? So that you're kind of offsetting that heat loss at that wall. There's not much more, roofs, yeah, definitely. If there's not enough insulation in a roof, we would add insulation because, for example, if there's an attic space, it's accessible, it's something that we can easily get to. But having to get inside walls, we haven't found it being cost effective. And, we can get most of our energy savings just by controlling the environment more so than having to add insulation to the building.
If we were to go ahead with a program like this, and there's a lot of stuff that would be replaced in the next year or two.
Sure.
So in 25 years from now, we got a big bundle of replacements to look at. Is it more efficient financially, in most cases, to phase this in and do part of it for 5 years and then so that in 25 years we don't have a huge outlay to replace all the stuff that's outdated?
That's an excellent question. Honeywell is open to doing a phase-type program with you if that's what you would like to do. In fact, at Lenawee County, that's what we did. We started with a phase one, and by the time we did it through three phases of the program, and they did about $10 million of improvements over a course of about a 5-year period, with us, gradually. One of the things that we did is we tried to prioritize the greatest needs, which, for the major improvements in this facility in the courthouse, which are the items that are presenting the most challenge to the county as well, especially Rick Shealy and Tim Yost in the facilities department that have to, take care of those facilities each day. But, if you wanted to phase it and then do the other facilities afterwards, you could. One of the things is you can see that the first program and the base program has almost $2.5 million positive cash flow. So if you did that as phase one, and then if you wanted to do phase two, which I was going to get to in the next chart there, which is called the enhanced program, that's basically everything in phase, base program, the phase one, with the exception that we would be adding the replacements of the youth home and the sheriff, the Wesley C. jail. That could be, potentially phase two, and then you see here, this would be, comprehensive. That would be, if you added that to it, that would be, phase three, which would be adding basically the other facilities, the airport and the Channel Road jail to the program. But right now, the interest rates for getting bonding it's been, the last probably year and a half to 2 years, it's been pretty stable in terms of how low the interest rate is. So the cost of money is very low. And in my career, I've been with Honeywell for 34 years, and I've been blessed to be able to do over 350 buildings, public buildings, with these types of projects. And I've seen them at the tax exempt rates as high as over 6%. So right now, you're able to get money. We just closed on a project with the Village of Dundee and Baraga County up in the UP that I did, and both of those were under a 3% rate. So it's good, from a money standpoint. So we'd be willing to, if the county, this is your project, this isn't ours, so we take our direction from you as far as how you'd like to prioritize it, and we'd be willing to, roll up our sleeves and because there's more options than what's just shown here, these three options. We have a linked spreadsheet that could go in, well, what if I took this building out and this out, what would it look like, and all that. We can quickly, show that, but what we tried to do today is just show the three programs based upon working for the last 7 months with the county, and what their priorities are and what their challenges are. And we feel and we believe that the best program is the base program, which gets all those needs addressed and gets the energy savings and gets that. So that's why we presented it that way.
If I may chime in too, I agree, Dave, phasing, could very easily do these three projects in phases over years. One thing I would point out is you're going to replace the equipment. There's no doubt about that. It will at some point fail. It's cheaper and we give greater economy of scale if we do more as opposed to piecemeal. And you get greater integration amongst the units and the elements. So it's a much better approach. And frankly, in the long run, it's cheaper. While the numbers are staggering and scary, at the end of the day, you're still paying less than you will otherwise if you do it piecemeal. Because I speak to Rick, more often than not, we're doing some emergency type situation. Even if it's something like, even in the summertime, oddly enough, I know, I see Chris there and it immediately jumped in my mind, us having to put a sprinkler to sprinkle our air conditioners.
That was a poor choice of the building people to not update that equipment.
The bottom line
bad
is,
engineering.
I don't disagree with that, but my point is that here it is, it's in the middle of summertime, it's not working adequately, and we have to do something to cool it down because otherwise we could be held in whatever contempt by some judge for cruel and unusual punishment of too hot in a jail. I don't know. But I'm just saying, my point is, economy of scale. Think of economy of scale. If we can do these kind of projects, in the long run, the county will be better served.
I certainly appreciate your presentation. I know you have some more to say.
I was just
No,
going to
they're
do
not
a
done.
couple
They're
more
not done.
things.
I know you have some more to say, but, and I will say, as one commissioner, I'm certainly not totally convinced at this point, but I guess part of my concern is there definitely has to be a completely solid financial plan from our perspective, at least, we are, again, we've all said this many times, regardless of where the money comes from, we're talking about taxpayer dollars here. I've heard you gentlemen mention the word bond a couple times. Has there been conversation before this meeting about a potential bond? Or maybe I'm asking the administrator that.
Sure, that would be the only way, in my mind, that we could fund a project of multiple millions of dollars.
So that would be the next step, and basically, backing up, if you look at the enhanced program, again, basically that adds the youth center and the Wesley Street Jail, major HVAC mechanical system replacements to the equipment there, and then this is what the cash flow would look like for that. You see that is a negative cash flow. There's a red number in the bottom right-hand box. And then what that shows you is that you would need to add about $100,000 a year to the $375,000 that you're spending right now out of your capital fund to fund this project. And then the last option that we came up with was basically everything that was in the enhanced that's there and comprehensively, and it takes care of the airport and the Chandler Road jail systems, redesigning them and re-engineering and replacing those. So you see on what those look like, the project amount, and you see that that also has a red number in the bottom right-hand box, and that's where you would have to fund about $215,000 more out of your capital improvement fund to add to that to fund this type of thing. So in summary, you know, we have a project that we've been working on now together with the county for 7 months or so. This is a timeline that's listed there. Basically, if you go down to, I think it's line 17 is where we are today and in this study session. And then obviously this is informational. We would be coming back next month to answer any further questions that come up, but we would anticipating, assuming approval, to go forward on some type of a program, whether it's a phased approach, whether it's the comprehensive approach or whatever the approach is. And then from there, we would go out for design and bidding, as well as the notice of intent, you know, for the funding, and then, you know, come back with a contract ready to implement. One of the things that we would do is, and having done this for all the communities that we've done it for, we realize that we try to keep as much of the dollars local as possible so that your contractors in this community will, you know, get a lot of this work when we put it out, you know, for bid.
Doesn't Consumers Energy have, let me start all over again. I see every building we have here is in need of lighting upgrades. Isn't there a program out there where Consumers Energy is doing this at no cost, funded by the federal government?
I'm not aware of it. I know that what they have is the program where they give you rebates. That's part of where we would get the rebates, and we do the application. That's where that $100 and some thousand of money comes back to you for putting this energy efficiency in. That's the rebate program. That was Public Act 295 that was passed in 2008 and required all the utility companies to basically do an energy optimization plan where they encourage all their customer sectors to save energy. So basically what has really been happening is your rates were raised for an energy optimization charge where they put it in a fund to provide energy efficiency, and then once you put the efficiency in, depending upon what it is, they refund that money back to you. So that's what that rebate money is.
So we will get that regardless whether Rick Shealy upgrades the lighting systems or Honeywell.
Yes.
We'll get the rebate in either way.
Yeah, if you do the same retrofits to the fixtures, yes. You know, we typically customize a lot of fixtures to maximize the light output and minimize the energy cost. You know, typically someone might go with a 4-foot or 4-lamp fixture and may just put in 4 other lamps that are lesser wattage. We take a completely different approach where you get maintenance savings because now you're reducing it down to 2 lamps. You go from 2 ballasts down to 1. And if you think about that for all the rooms in the county, you've got maintenance savings and energy savings in addition to the rebates. So, I mean, it's an art as far as the lighting retrofits is than it is a science. You know, we look at every single room and understand how much light is in each room and how do we match that light at less cost.
Isn't that what Consumers Energy does also in their retrofit program?
Not that I'm aware of. They'll come out and inspect, because we'll submit the rebate applications. They'll come out and inspect a pre-inspection before we do any retrofits to confirm that what we submitted is in fact what's on site. And then once we're done, we submit the final application. They'll come out and they'll make sure that what we said we implemented was implemented. But I'm not aware of any, you know, Consumers doesn't go out and do lighting retrofits themselves that I'm aware of.
Yeah, no, but that they rebate you to do that.
Yes, absolutely. But
Okay.
the rebates go back to the county. So the check would be, the check would go right to the county. We would just assist in filling out all the applications and providing all the submittals and things like that.
All right, but we could do that in-house if we so chose and get the same rebate.
I can't say you'd get the same rebate because I don't know what type of retrofits you would do.
Thank you.
You are, yeah, and you've already taken advantage of them, of the rebates with occupancy sensors. So you have had some rebates from Consumers, yes. Yeah.
So in summary, you know, the value for Jackson County is, you know, basically you'll be able to improve your facilities operation, make your facilities group the free up time that they're now currently spending, you know, to deal with equipment that's older and challenging, to have new systems in. They'll have a new life cycle. This is a proactive way to manage your assets because basically you're taking money that was in your sock drawer that you're currently spending anyway, and you're proactively just changing that over to use it to fund improvements that you know will fund themselves because we're guaranteeing it. And then number two, you're using it because you know that this stuff is old and needs to be replaced anyway. It'll also put, one of the things that we did for Calhoun County is we got their, two of their buildings Energy Star rated for Energy Star buildings afterwards. If there's opportunities to do things like that for you, we would do the same type of thing for you to put you in for Energy Star buildings. It will help Rick and his staff to better utilize the systems and free up time so they can go do other work that might be being contracted by the county right now and save the county in other areas. So we think it's a fiscally responsible way, and I'd like to thank Mike and Adam and Jim, as well as Rick especially, and Tim Yost for all their help over the last 7 months to help us go through all the facilities and each room and get all the prints and all the bills and everything that we've done over the last 7 months. We could never have done it without everyone's help. So we look forward to implementing a nice project for Jackson County, and if there's any more questions, I'll take them at this time.
I just want to thank you for all your efforts. At this time, we're not looking for any direction or anything like that from the board. We wanted to introduce this. We realized it's a lot to take in. I figured we would let it digest and discuss it here and there over time, over the next month, and bring it back in July for further discussion and perhaps some movement. So if no one has any immediate questions, we will thank them and bring back up Under Sheriff Chris Kuhl. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for your flexibility. I apologize for my late arrival. I had some child care issues that I had to address. What we have here is it's pretty straightforward. It's the Justice Assistance Grant, and there's a system in conjunction with the Jackson City Police that we would like to purchase. It's called a Milo range system, which is basically a use of force simulation system. We were approached by the City Police Department keeping these funds joint or together to purchase this system. The Justice Assistance Grants are applied for every year. Now, typically we don't receive them. It all depends on what the Justice Department has set aside for local assistance, et cetera, but we did receive a small portion of the grant this year. So what this system consists of is basically scenario-based training, where obviously out on the street when you have a use of force situation, which is obviously our highest liability situations, is that things are chaotic, they're never neat and clean. And this allows us to program a number of scenarios, react with different weapons, escalate, de-escalate situations, and evaluate the personnel's response to it and have them see what they did or didn't do, and use it as a training tool. So we want to purchase this in conjunction with the City Police with the Justice Assistance Grant. There is no match to this grant, it's simply an award. Milo Range Systems out of Ann Arbor was chosen based on a number of factors. Number one being the least expensive, but also close proximity for support. Has a lot of free additional scenarios, free instructor training, portability, and the number of accessories included with it. So 3 systems in total were evaluated.
Questions?
Under Sheriff, is this the same unit that's in service at Adrian?
I don't know if it's the same unit in service in Adrian. I was led to believe that Adrian had a slightly different system, or that at least this was a next generation system. I'm not familiar with theirs.
And then would it be the intent to allow use by all the police agencies in the county, I assume, which we did on the old FAT system?
Yeah, what we envision is when we do firearms training, or when we use this as a portion of firearms training, to invite all the local police agencies, because obviously, as you know, we find ourselves in scenarios where we're often working with each other and have these dual track scenarios where you have a backup officer, primary officer, etc. Yes.
Morning, Chris.
Good morning, sir.
This seems like a no-brainer. It's just free money to buy this with, correct? It's a grant given to us?
That's correct. Every year they go through and award these grants to...
Is there another place to use this money other than this force simulator?
No, it has to be concentrated to either training type issues or equipment issues, and with the portion of the grant that we were awarded, there's not much that we could buy or anything that would have a large impact like this. So combining the money and keeping it together, purchasing the system jointly makes sense to us.
Do you, okay, thank you.
Morning, Chris.
Good morning, sir.
Where would this be housed, or is it portable?
It's portable, either at the city police department or Chandler Road strikes me off the top of my head because we have some room there, but it's going to be moved around.
Thank you. Are law enforcement officials currently using a simulator of this nature somewhere else?
Yes,
training
this is
purposes?
a pretty widely used system, whether it be this specific Milo range system or whether it be the other systems listed in the item. They are in use across the country. As I said, it gives you flexibility to design a scenario. It also gives you the ability to program a number of different scenarios. So maybe you have a situation that starts very high with someone with a handgun and then it de-escalates quickly, like that they drop the handgun. Because not everything follows a nice clean pattern. It's very chaotic and very unpredictable.
But are law enforcement officials, are they currently going elsewhere to have this sort of training where this will make it much more convenient?
One of these is not in use. As Commissioner Elwell said, I believe one of the southern agencies down in Lenawee County has one, but we have not gone down to use it.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Now, I believe we're looking for action on this. Is this the one that's time sensitive that we need to?
This is not time sensitive. I anticipate this going to subcommittee on Monday.
Okay, good. Then we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Lifeways. I'm not sure who's speaking, but please approach the podium. What did I say? Oh, yeah, I'm looking right at it, but I'm thinking something else. Sorry. No, Mary Beth, I'm actually County Medical Care.
Right.
MCF. It was I misspoke. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to you all. I'm here as chairman of the Human Services DHS MCF Board, and I'm here to bring up for discussion something that needs to be dealt with, and that is a millage issue for the medical care facility. The millage issue itself, we're requesting, and I will be requesting formally through Commissioner Alexander's group, that consideration be made by all of the commission to put this issue on the ballot for November. The millage that we're requesting is a renewal of the .15 millage issue that was passed in 1999, and then an addition of a .1 mils, so a total of .25 mils for the medical care facility. The renewal, of course, would be for the maintenance of effort fund, and the .1 increase that we are requesting would deal with improvements, or actually repairs and replacements of the roof, of the rest of the roof, and consideration for upgrading and remodeling and rebuilding the Joey's Junction and the Respite Center to be viable and usable by the medical care facility, to bring it to its best use. I have with me a bevy of individuals who can explain everything to you and any questions you may have. I have Plant Moran here who will give you an overview of what is being suggested, and it has a cost of about $3.5 million for the renewal and renovation of that particular section. So I'm going to start with her, and then Mr. Markowski, who has been hired to represent the board in financial issues. He will be discussing further the financial part of it. Ms. Place, the administrator, she'll be discussing the capital budget or any questions you may have about that. And I have Mr. Cavell here who can discuss with you if you have questions about what needs to be done, continued with the roof. He can tell you exactly from the architectural point of view what those issues are. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's pretty good. If you don't have any questions for me specifically, I would like to bring forth the representative from Plant Moran. Go ahead.
Mr. Williams, this
Yes.
is Phil Duckham.
Yes.
I have a question on the original purpose of the .15 mil.
Yes.
Was that what was the purpose of that? Was it supposed to go away after so many years?
Yes.
And pay for something?
It was 20 years. It was a 20-year millage issue that goes into effect to cover maintenance of effort funds plus operational expenses if needed with those, use those monies for that.
Okay, and then the .1 additional.
The .1 is an increase that we're requesting, one for continued operation, because it's $800,000 to cover the roofing cost, the replacement of the roofing costs. And if we're going to do that, we got to, we'd have to, part of that would be, the other part would be the 3.5 million that has to deal with the renovation of Joyce Junction and the Respite Center.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, let me introduce Laura, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. She's from Plant Moran. She'll answer your question. I have to leave here, so any other questions, would you please place them to the people that I... Thank you.
There's 2 packets. That's correct. Covers. Good morning. My name is Laura Hester. I am with Plant Moran Creza. We're the real estate and strategy arm for senior living, the senior living and care sector. So we're very pleased to be part of the planning that Jackson County Medical Care Facility has embarked on. Our process is to examine the market area specific to the folks that you're serving in your marketplace. That is a pure demand supply study. We examine the facility for strengths and weaknesses, and then we look for opportunity to make incremental change to shore up your position in the marketplace. So starting on page 2, and this is the study that's ready for departure, which is our market analysis. This is our executive summary. So that we were engaged by the medical care facility to look at really 2 areas of interest. One was short-term rehab, which would drive Medicare dollars, and the second was the potential for outpatient therapy. And you can see on page 2 in red, and this is really reinforced by the CON process itself, is there really is not a need for additional beds in your community. So this isn't a matter of increasing, it really is protecting your position in the marketplace. We also looked at outpatient therapy, and what we found was there was no need for additional outpatient therapy. So again, it's about shoring up your current position and those that you're serving, your current patients and residents today. On page 9 of the study, and I'm going to give you a high-level overview. When we start looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the community, the strength of the location of the Jackson County Medical Care Facility really is, one of the strengths is its location. This is a graphic representation, a dot density map of the over 65 population in your community. And what you can see is the target zip codes of 201, 203, 202, and 269. It was really the core number of over 65, and you're in the heart of it. So that's a real advantage to you. You're also in the heart of the discharge. On page 14 is the location of the discharge hospitals in your community, which I'm sure you're well aware of. So you're in very close proximity to the discharge hospitals that are going to be doing procedures and managing acute care that would need discharge into a nursing home. And you're in the heart of the over 65 that might be electing surgery of some sort, whether it's going to be orthopedic replacement or treatment for some heart condition or whatever it might be. It's those, again, those Medicare dollars that we were focusing on. The other strengths of your facility clearly are your strong occupancy. We'll get into that in just a minute. And strong operations. You've been driving 94% occupancy in the last reporting. And Sandra's team has done a fabulous job in operations, and you really have strength there. You should be very proud of that. So then we turn our attention to the weaknesses, which ultimately evolve in opportunity. You're primarily a semi-private building. We're finding that the market is changing, particularly the baby boomers are looking for private setting for post-acute care rehab work. They're not content with semi-private, so the population's needs and wants are changing. The rehab facility itself is small, and it has served the needs of the past, but it really does need to be expanded and improved. And so this was the area of focus for change in the community at all. So why change at all? And if you look at page 16, this is the chart, and the next page shows where they're located on the map of your competitors, your nursing home competitors in your marketplace. And what is interesting on the chart is you'll see in the third column, it says control, and what that means is it for-profit, nonprofit, or governmental? With the county medical care facility clearly being governmental, the vast majority of your competition is for-profit. And the for-profit providers that we're finding are providing private units, private showers, lots of amenities. This is your competition. And then you'll notice that we have one more rehab facility coming in that's proposed in your market area. So when we look at the trends of your current performance and Medicare utilization on page 18, this shows back to 2009. You've been consistently right around 11 to 13% when you combine Medicare and Medicare HMO. And why is this important? If we slip into an all-Medicaid setting, it becomes financially unviable. It is not viable to operate in an all-Medicaid setting. We all know that it is very difficult to sustain operations with that form of reimbursement. With the 11 to 13%, you have been in a very strong financial position with your occupancies, and therefore able to thrive. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to protect that market share in your community moving into the future, and that's the reason for the request before you. Yes.
Yes, it appears to me that we're asking for taxpayer dollars to compete against private business.
I would say you're not, this isn't a competition question. This is preserving those that you're serving today. And again, if this is your performance on page 18, it's these Medicare dollars. So if you have elective surgery, such as a joint replacement, and you're choosing where you would like to have your rehab, that's a choice you have, and those dollars are equivalent for anybody. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to lose those residents that we're serving today and those future treatment that is needed that are going to capture Medicare dollars, because again, if we slip into all Medicaid setting, it is very difficult to thrive financially, and we'll be getting into the economics of that in a moment. So it really is just preserving that position in the marketplace, not capturing more.
Who would we be losing them to?
again, it's competition. Like any service that you provide, and particularly Medicare, it's choice-driven. And these are reimbursement dollars, so they're not personal dollars, so they can take their dollars to any facility that they so choose. And again, from a location perspective, you're very near the discharge hospitals. You're very near the core population of over 65 that are likely going to have those forms of procedures. So, and that's where those dollars have come from to date. We're simply trying to preserve that. You know, it's easier to make change when you're fiscally sound than when they're struggling financially. And we do see county facilities that have slipped into all Medicaid settings.
Who is it that sets the bed requirements for a county? Is that state or?
The state does, yes. They administer the CON process is driven by the over 65 population and the trends in population, and any adjustment to the bed need is based on that population shift.
It would seem to me that if we could host more beds in our county, maybe we could attract people from surrounding counties to create more jobs in Jackson.
Right now, there's no demonstrated bed need, so you could acquire from another facility if you chose to increase the number of beds. And then even if you chose to increase the number of beds, then the question would be, what would those beds be? So would they continue to be semi-privates, the smaller units as they've served today? Or as we're suggesting, are they private units, which the current population, that's what they're demanding, particularly in this kind of a reimbursement environment.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Are you familiar with the PACE program?
Yes.
Okay. You realize that's coming to Jackson. It will involve up to 200 of our senior citizens. It will address things such as physical therapy, medical needs, mental health needs. I can go on and on and on. And the idea behind that is, and the direction, obviously, that the state of Michigan and everybody is looking for us to go to, is to keep people out of care homes. And this is a program that I certainly believe will potentially even address some of the clientele that certainly currently are at the medical care facility. And I just wanted to bring that up because we are going to have an agency coming here that's going to be serving, generally speaking, a lot of the same population, not everybody, but a lot of the same population that the medical care facility services. So I just wanted to bring that up from a standpoint of when we consider looking at taxpayers paying more money for and an increase in millage actually in the medical care facility. So,
Mr. Rice, your point's well taken. One of the things that we examine very closely is the effects of healthcare reform on any repositioning project that we're involved in. It can't be ignored. There are more pressures today from, competition is just one of them, and we're focusing on this because of the reimbursement climate that we're talking about, but it's also home and community-based services, as you mentioned. So PACE is one of them, and home health care would be the other form on the private side. There's no doubt the healthcare reform is moving us away from skilled nursing as a form of delivery because it is the most expensive form of delivery out there. So there's incremental change, it's here, it's happening. So what we talked about in the repositioning effort is that it really is twofold. One is to shore up those Medicare dollars so that you maintain your current utilization. And I do believe, and not only your county facility at 194 beds, but other county facilities are quite large. When you look compared to other facilities that are out there, that there will be downward pressure, if you will, on the number of beds. Now again, you're in a fully semi-private setting currently. What we're seeing facilities do and consider doing is actually decompress the number of beds that they have and go to more of a private setting where there's opportunity to do so. You're sitting right now at a very healthy occupancy at 94%. I would not lose sight of that train of thought, though, because there should be consideration for thinking about how do you move those beds down in the future. The other thing that's going to be putting downward pressure on the number of skilled nursing beds is through the capitated environment and accountable care and integrated care organizations. There will be a reimbursement that's going to flow to assisted living. because it is a less expensive form of delivery of care. And I would submit that some of the residents that are in the county facility today likely would meet the criteria for assisted living. So I think what you'll see is downward pressure on the number of beds. When we make incremental change, particularly when we're talking about renovation and addition, we want to do so when you're in a healthy place, and you're in a healthy place today. So this will position you well that in the future, if you choose to reduce the number of beds in the facility in response to all these market forces that you're discussing, that you'll be better positioned because, again, you'll be shoring up those Medicare dollars, which we don't want to lose.
All right, thank you.
So, why change, as we talked about, it's a change in market trends, a change in demand, asking for more private units so that they can recoup in a private setting, private shower. The Medicare dollars are equal. All of the forces of the home and community-based services that are coming in. It is a defensive, protect your market share move that we are discussing today. We do not want to slip into an all-Medicaid setting. It will be much harder to make incremental change if we struggle financially. So that's why we're suggesting it today. Mr. Duck.
How many counties have medical care facilities like Jackson County does? I mean, is it a trend? Is it most? Is it few?
36.
36 out of 83 counties?
Yeah.
Okay.
So as a result of this study, what we have before you are a few options. We're not to a decision point yet, and it's in the next binder that I shared with you. Starting on page 4, this is just an aerial overview of the facility. There is existing space. You're blessed with having some existing space that's underutilized in the facility. It was a former respite area and then a daycare wing, and in the aerial you can see where those legs of the building are, and it is on the ground floor on page 4. The site plan, and then on page 6 is the floor plan. You'll see that we determined that it is a narrow space for standards for skilled nursing units. That's important as we look at the options that we're going to share with you. It's 33.5 feet across in length. We found that there's adequate capacity in the electrical and mechanical systems, so there's no major upgrade in the infrastructure. You have close proximity to food service and other support services in the building. So again, how do we create opportunity? On page 10, this is a least intrusive, if you will, renovation that could be proposed. It nets out 14 private beds. It does not change the footprint of the building at all, but it's a little bit forced with respect to the common areas in the building, and you can see that we're proposing an addition of the physical therapy gym and a therapy pool to serve the residents. Interestingly, each of the options that we've shared with you here really netted out really close to the budget price. So it boils down to what do we want to achieve for the project. So when you're looking at these, and you have all the detail, and you can peruse that, but it's all right in that $3.4, $3.5 million price point for each of the options. So we do want to achieve the private units and maximize the number of those private units. So on page 13, you can see that we've, again, maintained the footprint with going with private units and showers. We're only able to get 8. So we talked about bumping into the courtyard on page 14, and this is 16 private units with the private showers, and this is a more natural flow of space. It's a better layout, better adjacencies for the design. That particular budget is 3.4. That's including hard costs and soft costs. And then finally, we were asked to look at the potential to maximize, if we so choose to go semi-private. We are not recommending that you do a semi-private option that would mimic the floor plan above. We've given you the floor plan so you can see that, and that's on page 17, and that's 16 semi-private units. Is there any questions regarding the options that I've shared? Thank you.
Hi. How's everybody? I just wanted to speak for a second to the whole PACE waiver program kind of concept. Jackson County Medical Care wants to partner with those people to be one of the long-term care options. So we wouldn't be, I don't think, excluded from that program. We'd like to be part of that program down the road. So hopefully that will help to address that question. And I guess maybe talk a little bit about why we would need the additional millage, and then I'll turn it over to Ron. We, to operate sound financially, the average number of days that a nursing home should have cash on hand is 100. Now, we make every effort to achieve that 100, but we currently are not there. And with Medicaid and Medicare dollars slightly shrinking, integrated care systems being proposed, all the things that we're facing, the challenges we face in long-term care financially, this is why we wanted to offer something that would better serve our community, and why we needed the millage to do that. Our approximate daily cost is $50,612.05. That's just the cost of operations. And we currently have a capital budget this year of close to $600,000. Most of that is replacement of equipment and building repairs that need to be done, parking lot and what have you. I hope that helps a little bit. If you have any questions for me, perhaps Ron could go first, and then I could answer them after that also. Oh, go ahead.
Just for clarification, regarding to taxpayers, the MOE money, how much do you have in the bank right now?
How much do we have in the bank right now? Approximately, do you mean MOE money, or do you mean our cash in the bank?
Right now, there'll be further questions as we go to our committee Monday and so on and so forth, but right now, MOE.
I believe it's right around 5 million. No, it's not. Ron's got that. Sorry.
At this point, there's roughly 3.8
Ooh.
in the MOE, in the millage fund at this point.
Okay, so it's either 3.8 or 5 million. Okay.
I apologize.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead, Ron.
Morning. As you're aware, the millage that is presently being levied runs out in 2018. However, the bonds don't run out until 2029. Also, we have seen in the last couple years a large increase in the MOE requirement. A lot of the projections had been run before on approximately a 1 to 1.5% increase in the MOE payment. This last year, there was a close to a 5% increase, going from $420 to about $448,000 in MOE, and we're anticipating that same kind of a increase in MOE requirement for we don't know how long. The amount for 2014 has not yet been determined, but it is increasing. So part of what is being asked for is to take care of the large renovation that you just heard about. Also, there is another $800,000 roughly in need for replacement of the second half of the roof, which Mr. Cavalli would be more than happy to speak to. And with those items in mind, we are requesting a millage increase from 0.15 to 0.25. Now, the 0.15 we would have to have as a renewal, and the 0.1 would be an additional. If we don't do that, we will run out of money very shortly and not even be able to make the MOE payment out of this fund. Yes, sir. Yes.
That fund runs out of money.
That fund runs out of...
If that fund runs out of money, Ron, who makes up the shortfall?
County of Jackson.
Thank you.
County of Jackson is required to make the MOE payment. So, and that runs out in 2018. So, under the present situation, the fund would totally run out of money by 2023, 2024, under the present. And that was based upon MOE being only about a 1% increase. If we factor in the approximately 5% increase that we have been seeing, we will run out of money in that quite a bit sooner than that. So the 0.15 mils figures out to, as you are aware, $15 for a taxable value. For every $100,000 of taxable value, there would be $15 that would go to this facility or to the MOE, and the additional 0.1 would be an additional $10. So on a $100,000 taxable value, the amount going for the MOE fund and so on is $25. So I'll try to answer any questions that you've got regarding the issue at this time. Yes, sir.
Yes. So is the industry standard 100 days cash on hand?
It's just a recommendation.
That's a recommendation. There is not really a standard, sir, as to how much has to be on hand, but that's what they recommend. Part of the reason for that is sometimes the money does not come in from Medicare, Medicaid as timely as what it is needed. We can't use that same time period to pay and so on. So that's why it is asked, that's why it's recommended at that point.
So if my math is right, you currently have about 76 days of cash on hand.
Well, keep in mind, the 3.6 million that is in the fund at this point is being used to pay MOE, maintenance of effort, and that is not included in the financial records of the medical care facility. It is there to pay the county, to pay for the MOE that is assessed by the state of Michigan.
So do you know what your cash on hand is? How many days you could run now then?
I would guess, I have not looked at that lately, but I would guess that it's probably 2.5 million is what we have. That's what we used to have at medical care, so that's what, 50 days, 40 days?
That's running pretty thin.
Pardon?
That's running pretty thin.
It's not running too badly. Yes?
I'll direct this question out there for anyone from the medical care facility that feels in line to answer it. You're stating that $800,000 approximately is needed for additional repair roofing system.
Yes.
If I'm out there in the public and I'm hearing this number, I also know repairs have already been done on the roof. Is there someone that would specifically address the condition and why this needs to be done, what has been done up to now, and why it is so vital?
Yes. Jason?
Hello. My name is Jason Covell from Covell Group Architects. And what I can speak to is we have done 2 sections of roof in the last few years. The first section is sort of a unique section. It's the green metal roof over the dining hall area. That was replaced with a membrane system to simulate a standing seam metal roof, and that system was chosen because of the existing conditions, in my opinion, poor detailing of the roof, and also some really interesting construction methods that were used at the time when this facility was built. So the reason I brought that up is that's a unique roof. The flat roof section is not a unique roof. It's a flat roof, 45 mil EPDM roof, which is it's the black rubber membrane, over 2 inches of rigid insulation, and on top of the membrane is a fully ballasted roof, so lots of rocks. And the condition of the roof at this time, the flat roof section with the EPDM, is the rocks have gone from nice little round oval egg-shaped sections to broken up shards because of freezing, thawing, and the rocks are falling apart. So when crews are on the roof, walking on the roof service to service units, those shards are poking into the membrane and there's getting leaks. A lot of those leaks have been taken care of intermittently through a maintenance agreement with Tremco Roofing. But the long story is that life cycle on that membrane is nearing its completion. So with that in mind, we replaced the roof section over the kitchen. That was one of the worst areas just because there's so much rooftop equipment because of it being a kitchen. And again, with the maintenance required on those units, those rocks have been poking holes and they have numerous leaks over the last several years. So we replaced that system with a new three-ply composite cold process reinforced membrane. And all that to say, it's a really solid roof that will last minimum manufacturer warranty of 20 years. In reality, you're probably looking 40 to 50. That roof system does not have a ballasted roof on it, so we're simplifying the roof. And what we're finding out is what we don't want to do is once that membrane, the EPDM membrane, is no longer good and water starts entering the facility quicker, that's going to get into the insulation. The insulation is going to fall apart, get to the steel deck. The possibility of steel deck replacement exists or is there. And what all that means is there's a lot more to replace. So, for example, the section we just replaced over the kitchen, it wasn't bad enough where the insulation had to be replaced. So that installation cost was a lot smaller than it would be for a complete tear-off. And what we're trying to do is, and this is where some of the budget numbers came from that Brad brought up, is we want to get ahead of this, or at least it's to be a good steward of the building. It would be wise to get ahead of the problem rather than wait to the end, because again, we could avoid replacing all the insulation, the roof deck, and also we don't want to have rain coming down in the living quarters either. So that's why we put together a plan and a budget for that same system, replacing it over time and not losing investment of what is good. So I hope that answered that part. Thank you.
Are there any questions regarding the request or anything else that I can attempt to answer at this time?
Commissioner?
Yeah.
Or for the administrator, will all these documents be online for committee meeting Monday? It would have been good to have all these ahead of time so we could have formulated questions here, but
I don't believe that this is going to committee. I didn't think this was coming back till July. Am I mistaken, Adam?
Well, we report, our reporting month is tomorrow.
Yeah, but you're not asking for a decision on any of this. That's July conversation, is it not? This is strictly an informational session here in regard to MCF.
okay. Could we get these documents all digitally?
I assume Plant
Thank
Moran
you.
has them, yeah.
Yeah, I believe we're waiting for their board to approve it this month, and then for our board to look at it in July.
Anything else? Yes, Commissioner.
Ron, when's the deadline? We have to get this on the November ballot?
We're looking at the November ballot, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
August 12th is what?
I'm not sure what those timelines are, but it'd be on the November ballot.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. With that, does anyone need a break at all? Or should we continue right on through? I don't, because we still have a number of issues. I have one request for a break. Let's take 5, please. And therefore reduce the amount that the county has to use from its general fund, tax dollars. That worked well for many years. However, in 2007, Lifeways began to run a deficit, meaning the revenue wasn't meeting their expenses. And in 2012, it got to the point where, frankly, it was something had to change. They could no longer provide services. They did broach the subject with the county, as everybody knows, and ultimately we increased our local match to the 560. However, they still have a deficit balance in total. And that deficit currently is about $2.3 million. The state has indicated that we need to go back, and I have a letter to this effect. They basically gave us kind of 3 options. They basically said you need to go back and make up the difference from 08 to 2011, because in 12 we made the full match. Because you didn't pay the match, regardless of what transpired or what agreement you had or that sort of thing, regardless of need at that point, frankly. It's just that was kind of the rules, and you should have followed them. Well, obviously that to us, to the total Lifeways, that's over $8 million. Our share of that's about 75%, so we're looking at $6 million for the county if we had to make that up. $6 million is a significant number. It would, even over 10 years, it's $600,000 a year if we had to pay. So our $560,000 goes to well over $1 million if we have to pay the $600,000. What we've done here is I've created a response to the state's request. And what I've suggested in this response, this proposal, is that we realize Lifeways was running a deficit in 2007 and did so through 2011. We propose we go back and make up that difference. Because prior to that, they weren't running a deficit. To give them more money beyond 2007, further back, would be to serve no means other than to put money in the bank into a savings account, so to speak, for them. The operational need currently isn't there for those dollars. So what this proposal is just that we would go back, add up the difference between the 560 and what we actually paid from 2007 to 2011, and pay that to Lifeways over 10 years. And that works out to be, my spreadsheet here, that works out to be $245,000 in addition to the 560 we currently provide to Lifeways annually. I have sent this same letter and proposal to Hillsdale. John Burka has a copy. He plans to speak with his board, the Hillsdale board, down there Tuesday. At the same time, I have shared this letter with Lifeways and have requested that Lifeways give it consideration, and frankly, I'm asking that they also, assuming they agree, that they approve the letter, because I think it adds value to our request of the state to let us to go back to 2007 only. And Mary Beth, did you have a comment in regard to that particular element of this?
Good morning, Commissioners. I would like to comment on that, Mike, and we are going to be taking it to our board. As you know, since we brought this to the attention of the counties related to our issues with local match, we have been a partner with the county related to looking at creative options. And I see that the proposal that you have in front of us would address our structural deficit that we're currently in related to the local match and would allow us to, for several years, be able to meet our obligation related to the revenue that we receive for local match and what we need related to obligations for revenue expenses with local dollars. So I will be taking it to my board on the 18th for support and request their approval.
Thank you. So what we're looking to do is, this will flow on through the committee and so forth, but are there any questions or concerns? Yes, sir.
I do. Mary Beth approached me prior to the meeting, and I know our administrator is aware of this as well. I just so that this whole commission here is aware of it. The Lifeway Board is going to be receiving a letter with just a slight variance in it as opposed to what we have here. And I would like that to be explained to the rest of the commissioners.
The variance would be the fact that it includes the appropriations, hopefully, that the Hillsdale County would support as well. So our numbers will be different than the numbers that you're presenting to your board.
I have the numbers right here, actually. For Hillsdale, the total, the additional annual would be 84,791, 84,000, just for the record. So yeah, their numbers are different. We pay 75% of Lifeway's
Right.
local match.
Right.
I assume that's what you're referring to.
I'm assuming that's what you're referring to, Carl?
You also mentioned, you made another comment that there'd be a slight difference before we started this process in regards to the actual year of the appropriation or something of that nature. I thought you'd made a comment. Maybe I'm mistaken.
I'm not understanding what it is you're asking. I apologize.
Okay, all right, maybe I misunderstood you. Okay. I do have another question, though, as long as I'm at it. You mentioned that this would, from an operational standpoint, address the deficit for a period of time.
That's correct.
And roughly what period of time would that be?
Well, an estimate based from our chief financial officer is roughly around 5 years.
So then after 5 years, you would begin to go into a deficit again?
That's exactly correct.
And you could be standing back up here and we could be in the same situation? Potentially, if the system doesn't change at the state level?
That is correct, and that is one of the challenges, and we've talked about that, is the local match obligations for the community mental health currently exceed what we're able to generate, so yes,
Okay.
you are correct.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
I would say that while you say in 5 years you could be back here, you would be back here because the funding mechanism to fund Lifeways at the state level isn't working. Not necessarily because the county isn't paying its share, because the county is paying the $560.
Right. No, it wouldn't be that. It would be, you would be meeting your obligation.
Yes.
It would be a request of whether or not the county could increase to assist the community mental health.
Exactly. That's what I want to be clear
Yes.
on. It wasn't such that in
No.
5 years, it's not, we're not meeting our obligation. We are. I frankly expect, given what I've seen over the last couple of years, that there's going to have to be some changes, significant changes at the state level to fund mental health. It's just not working. I think anybody who's looked at it for more than a day realizes that. So I'm ever hopeful that over the next 5 years, it is resolved.
Yeah.
Other questions, sir?
Do I understand, at some point in time, do I understand that Governor Granholm asked mental health departments to refund any fund balance they had to the state of Michigan? At one time, excess funds?
I believe so. It was back in around 2007 when the structural deficit, we had to return. If you did not utilize those funds, you returned those funds. I can't speak directly because I was not in the position I am in, but I am aware of that.
It's likely if they ask us to give them the full $8 million between the two counties, the state of Michigan's say, okay, you should have given us back half of that 7 years ago, so we want it. So I guess I can't mean, you never know what's coming out of them.
Wow, I never thought of that.
Other questions? Commissioner Elwell?
Well, just one point, I don't have the letter in front of me, but it seems that I recall you had mentioned Lifeways in there being supportive of this proposal. It probably wasn't phrased that way, but that's assuming it's contingent on their agreeing with this. That's the letter that you had typed up to the council. I think you reverse engineered the wording on it, but if they're not opposed to that resolution.
Frankly, my position is this. I'm asking for Jackson County and Hillsdale County to approve this proposal. It's icing on the cake if Lifeways also approves it. I think that adds support to our position and our recommendation. If they choose not to, that's their prerogative. We will still move forward with this because our only option would be this proposal or something more. And if the state had their way, at this point, it would be $8 million. This proposal here only adds up to, I think it's just over $3 million.
I pulled it up. It's the letter to Renwick, I think is his name.
Yeah, that's correct.
And you've got, lastly, Lifeways and the two counties find this proposal acceptable. What purpose is served by MDCH forcing litigation, blah, blah.
That's correct. If Lifeways chooses to vote no, we're not supportive, then I would have to change that last sentence. Nope. Anyone else? Commissioner Duckham asked, worst case scenario, would they take our revenue sharing? And I'm not really sure what the worst case scenario would be. Frankly, if the state is adamant that we pay $8 million, we'll see. I think we may very well end up in litigation, let's put it that way, because I think we're in a pretty good position. They've known for, they're wanting us to go back to 98, 99, 2000. That's a long time ago, and it causes significant pain and suffering and hardship on our county. To go back now and ask us to pay those dollars. Those books have closed. They were audited, presumably. The state presumably was aware of it. To go back now, I think, puts us, and I frankly think it puts them in an awkward position as well. So I'm hopeful that they will accept what we're proposing and we can move forward with this. Thank you.
Well, I think it's worthy of mention again, since we're in a public meeting, what you noted in the documents that they gave Tackett approval to, in my opinion, when they accepted the numbers back then that laid them out for the future. So it's kind of hard for them to argue they didn't know about it and to try and go back that many years now.
Agreed. If there's not any other questions, okay. Thank you very much, Mary Beth.
All right, thank you.
Next up, we have I believe it's a resolution that Commissioner Alexander has on the, would you like to address it, please?
Thank you. I believe it's self-explanatory that we have 28,000 Jackson County residents using Center for Family Health, the value it adds to our community, as well as assisting us in meeting our strategic priorities. So this is just going through the process officially, and would be asking for your support as it moves forward.
Questions? I was going to say, this will move forward then. Next up, we have a discussion of the Leone Southern Interceptor. Again, this is one of those items that has been going on for some time. And I have been Working now? There you go. It shuts off automatically if you leave it on too long, I believe. At any rate,
Should tell you something. Working fine.
At any rate, this has gone on for, frankly, goes back to the beginning. And I'll just give a little brief history from my perspective looking back at it. I wasn't here, but I've read a lot about it and talked to a lot of folks about it. There was a need to provide sanitary sewer services, South County, around some lakes, that sort of thing. All pretty common stuff. The county was, housing was growing, booming, when they decided to do all this. And they developed a project and decided to move forward with the bonds and all that, with the idea that there would be significant growth to sustain the bond, the payment, the revenue. People signing up, or I should say building a house and paying sewer fees. Unfortunately, we all know what happened in 06, 07, that sort of thing. Bottom fell out, and suddenly there wasn't the growth to support it. Now, there's some question as to, in all the different townships, they have some different varying thoughts on what should or shouldn't have been. Some would say that the bond was supposed to be paid for out of the system receipts. Well, there's 13 communities hooked up to that sanitary system, I should say, to the wastewater treatment plant in Leone. There's only, the primary townships, Hanover, Liberty, and Columbia, I believe, that are served down there by the Southern Regional Interceptor. And those are the three southern counties that are signatories to the contract with both the county and Leone. We're all parties to this agreement on how we're going to pay this bond. Ultimately, the county just pledged its full faith and said, we have a better bond rating, we get a better rate. That was our involvement. As an example, the wastewater treatment plant, the county didn't have to pledge its faith. Leone went alone on that. So it's not necessarily that they had to have us, but it was at that time a better, they can get a better rate. It was a better situation. So at any rate, bottom line is, the money didn't come in like they expected it to, and there started to become strain on the system as to who was going to pay the bond. Lawsuits ultimately were initiated between the townships, the three versus Leone. There were court, Judge LaFlamme has an opinion, an order, not necessarily an order, but a ruling on it, in which he said, we could probably take this next step. If the county were involved, you need to go back and consider that. Well, since then, nothing's really happened in regard to that. What has happened, though, is we've come upon a bond payment. Back in January, they made the payment. It was a close one, but they made it. Now, this one here is like $306,000 or $7,000. $307,000 was due June 1st, contractually to the county. June 1st came and went, and we have not seen this bond payment from Leone, because they're responsible per contract to pay the county the money. It's not to come from the other townships. Not to say the other townships aren't necessarily responsible for paying it, because that was Judge LaFlamme's opinion, frankly, that they were responsible to pay Leone, and Leone is responsible to pay the county. I have a resolution here before me that would put Leone and the three other townships on notice that the bond payment has not been paid, that they are in default of their agreement. This resolution here, I've not released it yet. It is finished. It's drafted and reviewed by attorney and ready to go. Next week, and I spoke to the Drain Commissioner, the chair of the Board of Public Works. Next week we'll have a Board of Public Works meeting, and I assume they will approve this, putting them on notice. Per our agreement, we give them 10 days. So they have basically 10 days from the day we give them notice to deliver a check to the county. If they deliver the check, all is well at this point. If not, well then in July, the expectation would be that the county commissioners would have to take some action pursuant to the contract. I can tell you that already penalties and interest are starting to apply. That's 1% a month on the outstanding balance of $307,000 at this point. There are attorney fees already incurred. I've spoke to them. I probably have a few hours into them already since June 1st. So that would be the responsibility of Leone as well. And of course, I believe it's incumbent on the county to engage auditor services. The contract does allow for us to examine the books, and it also is very clear about who incurs those costs, and it is Leone Township for that. Leone is basically, I've heard them say that they don't have the money. Well, then I hear the other townships say that, they do have the money. Frankly, I think an audit is appropriate. It would, for once and for all, determine what is or is not the situation on the ground there. I do believe that not just a financial, accounting, typical audit would be necessary. I think we should also look at the performance side of things as well, and as well as involving a rate study. What should the rate be to meet the needs? Because frankly, if your rates are higher than what is necessary, well, technically, I believe that's illegal. That becomes a tax if it's higher than what's necessary. You're not allowed to use enterprise money to operate general operations of your government, or is, again, a tax. So all those kind of things, questions will need to be answered, again, at Leone's expense. So we will be prepared to move this forward. This resolution does not require county commissioner approval to put them on notice. The county had given the Board of Public Works that authority back when they had created the bond. I do expect, though, to bring it in to the June Tuesday night meeting, because I think it adds value to ask the board to also approve and to inform those and give those in the public also opportunity to be heard on the matter. Questions, concerns? Commissioner Elwell?
Mike, if I heard you right, you said that the contract says that Leone pays, but then you were also talking about the 3 townships, I think 3. But if that's what the contract says, isn't the issue really between somebody has to make the payment, it should be Leone, and then Leone can figure out with the 3 townships who should be paying? Doesn't that make sense based on what you just said?
Yes. Okay. I think that's, when you read through the contract, to a layperson like myself, it can be confusing. I mean, I can show you 3 different areas of the contract where I think it says 3 different things. But when you look at it in total and follow it through, especially with being guided by legal counsel, competent legal counsel, it becomes very clear. And as Judge LaFlamme has said in his opinion, that clearly, he said, first of all, he said the contract was unambiguous, which means it's clear. And when you have a contract that's clear, that means whatever the contract says is what you have to follow. It doesn't matter what the intent going into the contract was. Shame on you for signing the contract that didn't say what you thought it said. If it's clear, you have to follow the language of the contract. His interpretation of that, and he's the man in the black robe, is that Leone is responsible to the county to pay this bond. Those townships are responsible to Leone to pay for the bond, but they're paying to the Leone, not to the county. That's how he interprets it.
Okay, and then, maybe I missed it, but what are our options then? Obviously, we're going to have to pay this if they don't. I don't know how long we're going to wait and let penalties accrue, but what are our options to recoup that from Leone then?
The bond payment's due July 1st. Assuming we do not receive payment from the township, I will be recommending that the county meet that obligation of $307,000 and change. The penalty of 1% a month continues until such time they make us whole. Our means of collecting are twofold. One, we will, with this resolution here, once the Board of Public Works approves it, it will go to all the treasurers of the townships as well as ours and the state treasurer, putting them on notice of the default. We will be asking for withholding of state revenue sharing of Leone. That would be equal to, the law says, Act 185, that we can ask for 25% of the outstanding payment. So 25% of the 307 is what that would be. Now, obviously, we're only receiving 25% of this from state revenue sharing. The other means there is to impose either a rate increase or an ad valorem tax. System-wide, I wouldn't say that yet. Our attorneys are looking at that. There's some question there, in my mind at least. Is it Leone? Is it the other three? Is it all four? Is it all 13? The attorneys, there's at least two of them now. There's a second one that's came in who's more of an expert in this too. We're using Peter Cole's firm out of Cole, Toskian up in Lansing. And it's kind of sounding like it may be limited to the 4 as opposed to the 13. But he's looking at that, trying to refine it more. So at any rate, bottom line is we will collect what we can from state revenue sharing. And then the rest, it'll come down to making a decision, are we going to impose a rate increase? And I think it really kind of, you look at it like, will the rate increase pay the bill? I mean, if truly there's not enough customers to impose a rate increase to pay the bill, well then the ad valorem tax is also available. And frankly, it's available regardless. An ad valorem tax, however, would be everyone in the township. Regardless of whether you're hooked up to sewer or not, you'd be paying this
Okay, and then
rate.
I got a couple more, but I'll just ask one maybe. We wouldn't really know how much is available there for funding until an audit's done. And if that's done, it's done by somebody that we pick that looks at what they want to look at, correct? But short of that, there's been speculation about how much is there. Do you have any idea, ballpark, what's there? Would $3.5 million be accurate or not, do you think?
I really, and truthfully, I really do not know. I mean, I've seen different numbers, but I have...
Has anybody asked Leone?
Sure, and they have provided different information. There's different... it's really a tough situation because a lot of people dispute those numbers. It gets really muddled really quick, and so I've had some folks suggest that, well, to be, don't take it the wrong way, but I've had some folks suggest that Leone raised rates 2 years ago to pay for this already.
Would that be the $7 increase?
Yes. And, of course, when you speak to Leone, they say, no, that's not the case. However, some of the financial stuff isn't as clear. So the bottom line is, rather than me or anyone really, any layperson trying to discern what is or isn't, I truly, believe, and I'm going to be talking to the Board of Public Works about this, that we need to bring in an auditing firm, not just a regular, auditing firm, but a auditing business/consulting firm who looks at these kind of things. There's lots of them out there. There's some very large firms who have the depth of operation, who can move quickly. Generally, an smaller accounting firm, they're busy in audits. They don't have lots of extra people. So, but we want this thing to move relatively quickly because we don't want to be making the next bond payment, which will be in January.
Well, just speaking as one commissioner, we're putting county finances at risk now, and there's been so much speculation out there about where the finances are with that place that that's the only thing that makes sense is to have an audit done by us, which is allowed, I think, by the bond contract, correct? That they pay for to find out what's there and what's not. Thank you.
I would agree. I would tell you, too, that in my most recent discussion with legal counsel, they pointed something out that I had not really considered until that point, and that is that we may very well want to not only look at Leone's books, but the 3 other townships as well. So we may very well be looking at auditing of 4 townships. Not just the books, but we're talking about the performance as well. Again, there's operational review and issues to be considered there. Is the rate higher than it needs to be because money is not being spent appropriately. That all is applicable. It has all been leveled to one degree or another at various times.
Thank you.
Carl? Oh, Dave, go first, then Carl.
What we would be looking at, and Treasury used to do these a lot when I was there, is a financial, legal compliance, and performance audit, which is going to cost about 3 times what a normal financial audit usually costs. About withholding revenue sharing, the financial people know what the state F-65 report is, and if that wasn't turned in on time by a local unit, Treasury held all of their revenue sharing until they got the report. I used to audit Act 185s, and I don't recall being a 25%, but I'm getting old now, so I don't remember all that stuff. But I mean, the law says you're going to withhold it. Boom. So, and I believe the 25% is we would get 25% of our amount out of their next 4 payments. So we would end up with 100% of our money withheld from their revenue sharing.
That may be, frankly, I haven't heard that, but then again, I haven't necessarily talked to the state in detail about that particular element. I've read the act itself.
Thank you. To speak to some of what Commissioner Elwell was saying, as well as our administrator, and I agree, Judge Flam was very clear and concise in his ruling. In regards to Leone Township making the bond payment, that is correct. But also Judge Flam, and in the contract, making the bond payment while receiving funds from Columbia, Hanover, and Liberty. So Leone is responsible to make the payment after, of course, receiving the funds from those 3 townships. He was also very clear that that this is something that all 4 of the townships are involved in. It's not just one township. And I'm not speaking, obviously, as a county commissioner who represents part of Leone. We all know that, but I'm speaking specifically from Judge Flam's ruling, from what I've read through the contract. As Mr. Overton said, you read through that contract, you could read it 10 times and go back and read it again, and you'd question yourself when you found something else in there, or you'd question yourself when you said, looked at it and went, wait a minute, this is hard to understand, it's not real clear. But apparently the judge felt like this was a matter between 4 townships. And when we're talking about auditing, I have no problem whatsoever with the auditing. But again, since it seems to be very clear that we have 4 townships who are responsible in this matter, we have 3 townships that actually use the system. We're talking the SRI system. Leone does not use this system. It's used by those 3 townships. And we're also talking about the finances involving all 3 townships. When it comes to paying on this bond, I think it would be prudent for us as a county, as county commissioners, to actually, as our administrator alluded to, it wouldn't hurt to have all 4 townships audited in regards to this matter. Because again, there's been questions all around who's doing what, who's not doing what, and it certainly couldn't hurt moving forward to do that. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? Commissioner Alexander, then Commissioner Duckham.
If legal counsel is advising that all 4 townships be audited, according to our lease and our contract, is it the obligation of Leone to pay for those audits in all 4 townships?
I asked that same question because it wasn't clear to me. And our attorney, he said, well, he would have to look at it more closely. It wasn't completely clear to him. However, that may be the case.
Kind of following the same thought process, I was wondering why the county would request an audit of the other 3 townships, because the other 3 townships don't have an obligation to the county, only Leone does. So would not Leone request the audit of the 3 townships that owe them money? Or they claim owe them money, whichever way it would wash out.
I'm not sure I can answer that. Leone, they may have, I'm not sure if they have or have not asked for an audit of the other townships. I just know that our attorney said that his interpretation of the contract was that we could ask for that, so. And I'm like, okay, well, we'll look at that a little more closely.
And I'm glad you brought that up again, because again, this is a matter of what's fair. This is a matter of what's right, regardless of how this ends up, whether it ends up in the lap of Leone, ends up in the lap of 4 townships, 3 townships, whatever it happens. This thing needs to get done right and appropriately, and regardless of the outcome. And again, Judge Aflam, our own attorneys, made it pretty clear that the money flows from 3 townships to the Leone. Leone takes the money, and then they pay the bond. It's that simple. Not trying to make it simple, because it's not, but it is that simple. And based on Judge Aflam and our attorneys, again, to me, it just common sense that all 4 are audited if we're going to do this thing the right way and be fair to everybody.
Other questions, concerns? Well, then, here's what you can anticipate, other than stories in the paper. Next week, the Board of Public Works will meet. I spoke to the chair there, which would be the Drain Commissioner. He indicated he had some other business, too, that he wanted to discuss there, so we will be meeting. And I would assume proving this notice, this resolution, that really puts them all on notice, the state and all the townships and everyone. And then I will report back at the Tuesday night meeting, where we are, just to keep the board informed, and most likely I would ask the board for support of the resolution as well at that time to just reinforce the Board of Public Works, of which you granted the authority to handle this. Anyone else? Questions? Okay. Well, setting that aside, next up we have the CFH resolution. Am I looking at the right one? No. I'm confused again here. Community and Social Support Strategic Presentation. Marcy. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Still morning? Yes.
My name's Marcy Wandell, and I'm Director of the Jackson County Department on Aging, but I'm here as a member of the county's Strategic Implementation Team, and I represent the Community and Social Supports goal. And as you know, your strategic plan, includes these priorities, and one of them is Community and Social Supports. And the vision of Community and Social Supports is the short of it is to coordinate and facilitate sufficient delivery and improve access to services within the community. And I'm going to demonstrate that shortly, because we were asked, is a good suggestion to try to make it a more engaging presentation as far as strategic implementation team strands or goals. And the organization that's working on the Community and Social Supports is the Human Services Coordinating Alliance, to help facilitate this strand or goal. And the mission of the Human Services Coordinating Alliance is to ensure a system of support and improve collaboration and coordination among community support organizations. And this is just a list of most of the members of the HSCA, Human Services Coordinating Alliance. And what I have in front of me is a demonstration of how Human Services Coordinating Alliance ties in with Community and Social Supports. So on the monitors, the audience can see the silhouettes that you're going to see, and these silhouettes represent the different organizations, nonprofit organizations in our county that serve the public from prenatal to death. Really, all these services are all age groups, all needs in the community. And I'm going to ask for each of your help as commissioners. You are the head of a nonprofit agency. And this yarn represents your resources. You have resources, the employees that you have, the volunteers, the funding sources that you have. Some of you have more strands than somebody else. Some don't reach very well. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Thanks. Some of you have some gold or so. I took care of that. Thanks. Yeah. So the
Obviously, you're with Disability Connections because you've got 2 or 3 hats.
so the fancier yarn is because you're also, as head of an organization, involved in different collaborations. And if there was more time, what I would do is cross these strands together, because as members of the nonprofit community, the heads of these organizations, you collaborate with different people in the community. So it would be, if you could cross the strands better, then you'd see that we're working together to kind of have a tapestry of help for people who need it in the community. And when you do that, it can get messy sometimes, but you work together, you communicate. So 2 of the main goals for community and social supports is to look at how can we communicate better, how can we cross over between organizations and provide service between groups. How can we do that better? And also, where are the holes? Where looking at data, where are the larger holes that we, as a nonprofit community in Jackson County, how can we address those? Where's the largest need? So those are the 2 priorities of community and social supports. And as a county, we're involved because we're involved in the health, HIO, Health Improvement Organization. We have the safety strand. So all these strands combine as well. The collaboratives that there are and the different components of the strategic plan are all working together. But it is a slow process. But people are at the table, and we're looking at people that are, it's called system change, I'm not used to the term yet, through a program called ABLE. And many of you as heads of organizations have taken this training to sit down, because a lot of times we tend to jump to solutions. Here's a problem, let's go to solutions. And it's taking the time to look at what are the systems, how could we change them to improve service to our public. So that's my demonstration of community and social supports. Thank you for your participation. Yeah. Don't want to give up your... Any questions? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Done a good job clearing out the audience.
Okay, you're welcome.
Marcy, thank you very much.
Well, I really can clear a room, though.
Okay, we're up for harness racing, and let me grab my materials here. Obviously, this is not an action item at this point. It's an update of where we are and what has... Can you hear me? Is that thing working? transpired. I have, before me here, I have the third draft of the lease agreement, and I sent to Mr. Boyd yesterday. So that's moving along. It's probably all total close to 20-page document covering both his and our expectations there. I received, and I really haven't, I had a hard time reading that initially. I received a report from Charles E. Kuhn and Sons, Inc. They're track consultants. They're the folks that took a look at our track to determine what we need to do to that track to make it viable, once again. And from what I'm gathering, and by all means, Bray, you can jump in here on this, what I'm gathering is it doesn't seem like we need a whole lot to do there. Clean up the weeds and, was that?
Pretty much. Good morning, Commissioners. If I can just give you a real quick, brief update over the past 30 days and how things have transpired. Again, I'm Brett Boyd, Jackson Raceway LLC. I know one of the immediate concerns last time was schedule conflicts with Denise. I met with Denise. We established a 5-day racing program that we're targeting for this year. August 23rd, September 6th, September 13th, September 20th, and September 27th, all Saturdays. And for the most part, there's no immediate conflict with those dates with the fairgrounds. There are some events at the America One building, but we worked out the details so we don't be a conflict to those events. Met several times with Denise and Mr. Overton on the lease as we move forward. We did walk the grounds with a gaming control board. Obviously, those folks are the folks that issue the license to both the county and myself. We did learn a great deal from the gaming board, and we've reacted on some of those, one of which is that Mr. Overton referred to was the track conditions. The gaming board more or less said, you need to give us a detailed plan from an industry expert on what we need to do to the track to make it suitable for racing. We're fortunate to have a relationship, the Horsemen have a relationship with a gentleman by the name of Mr. Chuck Kuhn. Him and his sons are Hall of Fame track engineers. They've worked on Churchill Downs, Keeneland. They're right now putting in a brand new racetrack down in Ohio. They did survey the track. They did send a letter yesterday of recommendations, and they do plan to oversee the conversion of the racetrack. We also walked the facility to address some more immediate concerns about repairs and maintenance that will be necessary. I did meet with the city, the mayor, the city manager, and city attorney in regards to fire, police, protection, and traffic issues. I'm also in front of the city council on the 24th. Met with some potential investors from the Jackson area. These are folks that are very instrumental business folks in your community, and they have a tremendous interest in being a part of the racetrack, which I think really serves the best interest of the community. Continue to work on the track and meet licenses, and met yesterday to try to finalize negotiations with the Michigan Harness Horsemen's Association, with the ultimate goal that next year there will be 40 days of racing at Jackson on Fridays and Saturdays, starting the first weekend in May and going through the end of September, obviously with a little interruption in the middle for the Jackson County Fair. And our goal is to submit those track and meet licenses as soon as possible. They are rather detailed, and we're doing everything we can to work through that. In regards to the track, I do feel very good about that. I know it was a major concern of the gaming board. We're just very fortunate to have the Kuhn family, which has their ties and their roots right here in Michigan, and they are being very helpful in that process to get everything converted.
It's still my expectation that Tuesday evening, at a Tuesday evening's board meeting, we will have resolved any remaining issues in regard to the lease agreement, and should be looking, I'll put that out on board docs as soon as we get it finalized. But we'd be looking for approval on that. It was drafted by Phil Curtis, and like I say, it's the third third draft, we're almost there. We're very close. Finish up the few details on that. Any questions or concerns or? Yes, sir.
Brett, do you anticipate that the licensing will be in place for 5 races this year? Is that going to be an issue?
I'm extremely confident in the Jackson County receiving their track license. The meat license is a different animal. There has been a precedence before where they issued a meat license during the year, but by law, it says that the application should have been submitted by September 1. Now, in September, I had no idea that we would potentially be in front of you. So, and due to the fact that there is no longer any more race dates for the harness horsemen in this fiscal state year, we're going to request an emergency request to allow for 5 more days of racing because there is not any more in the state's fiscal year. There is some racing in the calendar year at the end of the year at Sports Creek Raceway and Sports Creek. Have had correspondence with Representative Pileski and Shirkey, and they are aware of the situation. They have actually prepared some legislation that they'd like to move very quickly. It's going to be, we're operating in a very, very tight window. But if necessary, if they deem it necessary, then they're going to try to do that for us to facilitate a license for this year. If that we are unsuccessful in getting the meat license, which is the license that I'm going to acquire, which is the license that permits me to collect wagers on the races and to simulcast. If we are able to get the track license only, I'm hoping to come back to you folks and offer harness racing potentially, excuse me, on at least August 23rd without live racing or live wagering. And there's several benefits to that because by September 1, we need to apply for dates for next year. And I want to show the Gaming Control Board that we can execute a day of racing there. Even if we're not allowed to get the meat license this year, I would still like to conduct the races there on August 23rd to allow us to distribute purse money to our horsemen. It would be kind of a practice run for our operation. And I still think we can have a lot of fun without the wagering. But with the ultimate goal, if we're not able to get the meat license in time for August 23rd to allow for wagering, we'd still run on that day and focus our attentions on securing the licenses for 2015.
Anyone else? Any other questions, concerns? If not, we will move on. We expect to have an agreement for board consideration on Tuesday, not next Tuesday, the Tuesday after. And I agree. I think the track license, I don't think that's going to be that difficult. In talking to the, Al Ernst, he didn't seem to. And looking at the application, there's not a whole lot there, frankly, that is challenging for the county to meet. So it's just the track itself that is our concern. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Almost forgot. Last but not least, the budget presentation. By far not least.
I know you guys have been here a long time, so I will keep this under 2 hours today. So
No, Mike is buying lunch.
we'll make our way through this budget. Thanks, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, for allowing us to present the 2015 county budget. This budget was created in accordance with your values and also with the strategic priorities, and hopefully I'll touch on some of those priorities as we go through this. Just to talk to you about some of the new things to the budget this year. We've integrated the transportation capital plan in with the county capital plan. So last year, we integrated them operationally, and then this year, we've got their capital budget in there. So in the final budget document, you'll see really what comes from the Transportation Improvement Program, and then also their operational capital items, such as the window replacements and other things that they need on that end that I'll cover in a little bit. The theme is we created this budget. We were benefited by a number of things, but primarily, and first of all, is the past prudence of this board in making difficult decisions at the time that they needed to be made. So we've held expenses down. We also benefited from additional state funding this year. Tax reimbursements from previous gifts from the state to individuals and businesses. The state came back and reimbursed the county for, or their plan is to reimburse the county for those breaks. And also property appreciation that we've talked to you about in the previous revenue presentations. Highlights strategically, we've got continuity of services. We're not recommending any cuts, and we're able to do that despite what we told you last year because of some of those things that happened at the state level and also what's happening with our own property evaluations, taxable value appreciation. With preservation of law enforcement services, which has becomes continuously more difficult as costs increase each year, and also as the other law enforcement agencies have to trim down, so we become essentially the last ones in, which then becomes the hardest to cut. We've got public-private collaborations with our public health, which can seem to be working well, and I noted in the presentations for Monday's Health and Human Services Committee that one of the things the board brought up, or the committee brought up last month, is being followed up on. That was a conversation was had with the other half of our health officer's job, and he's going to report back to you on that communication. We're funding parks, trails, we're collaborating educationally, and we've got many public community partnerships, and I speak to that with respect to Jackson 2020, and all of the strands that are of the board's strategies, we're working collaboratively, and every single one of those, it's very exciting to see those. So the budget we're recommending is $46,508,237. That's an increase in the general fund budget from last year, and so let me take a little step back and tell you why that looks so big. In 2014, the general fund was not completely funding the Human Services Fund and the Health Fund because there was fund balance there. We used approximately $2 million in existing fund balances, which didn't require a transfer out from the general fund to those other funds. So this year, what you're seeing that increase is it's fully funding all of those plans at a structural level. Health Fund, Human Services Fund, which pays for foster care and other child care expenses. In 2015, those are fully funded. What that means is the balances left in those funds is down to an acceptable level, a diminished level, and our fund balance primarily left is in the general fund. So when we get to that in a few minutes, there won't be any pockets of money left. We'll have exhausted all those, and strategically done so, I might add. So revenue-wise, this is no stranger to you. The real and personal property taxes comprise the bulk of our revenue, and then charges and fees, intergovernmental revenue, and then transfers in. One of the other things we're benefiting from is full revenue sharing. The governor recommended 100% reinstatement of revenue sharing, and the legislature has supported that, and to my knowledge, even backed off some of the requirements that were tried to be stipulated earlier on in the session. So we're looking at a gap there that was filled of over $650,000, which last year when we told you there was going to be a structural balance of $2 million left. Now, some of the state money has filled up that, and that enabled us to preserve services this year. So the expenditure side is the same. I would point out something that we point out each time, that most of our services go into the public safety system, which is not only law enforcement down here, but also the judicial system up here, and many of the operational systems that support that, including the clerk and other things, are also tied directly into the public safety system. In all, we anticipate, we usually estimate around 60 to 70% of our resources go to that system or that strand in our strategic priorities. Included in this 2015 budget, I'll just go over a couple of the highlights, and we talked to you about this previously, so it shouldn't be a surprise, but increased child care fund costs from the amount that you increased it in 13, we had to increase it again in 14 and then in 15. So we're up to funding total costs, it's going to be around $2 million, of which you pay half of that. The increased funding to Lifeways of $250,000, that's going to change a little bit as we continue to pursue this, but we're pretty close to the number that we're anticipating with this agreement. Some of the changes we made last year did net us some benefits and expenditure savings with retiree health care, and from what we can tell and looking at it, there hasn't been a diminished service, a significant diminished service, but that saved us $500,000. This budget does not include any market adjustments or what otherwise might be called cost of living adjustments. It just includes step increases for employees. Keep in mind, however, that the final compensation for union employees will be based on collective bargaining results for 2015 and beyond. We are not requesting any additional full-time equivalent employees in this budget, and we're not asking for them to be cut either, which is, to us, a significant accomplishment from what we've been looking at in previous years. That number is with the Road Commission assimilated into the county as a Department of Transportation. We're at 572 employees, full-time equivalent employees. 73. Yep. And please do just jump in with questions at any time. So the expense trends over time, I want to point out some of the differences here. One of the things you're noticing, this is the personnel cost, and you see a big jump in 14 and 15. That's overstated because of the float that was done where we've taken out the wages from that. And of course, and then in 13 to 14, there was a 3% increase to salaries in addition to steps to account for the increased cost in healthcare that the employees took on. So there was a big jump from 13 to 14, and then 15, that jump is because the float's already been backed out of this accepted budget. And then this increase in transfer out is what I was talking to you about, the us relying on the other fund balances this past or this current year in 2014. In 15, we're fully funding all those, which means we're transferring out of the general fund into those special revenue funds. So where does this budget leave us with the fund balance? We had estimated fund balance at the end of this 2015 will be down to $12,134,000. That board policy of 24% is at $10.6 million. So that leaves us $1.5 million for addressing future shortfalls in 16 and then 17. Last year when we came to, we thought that $2 million structural deficit, and because of the state increases, revenue appreciation, we're able to cover half of that now. And because of a good year in 13, able to extend that out. Now, a couple of clarifications, one of which would otherwise come to light when the audit is presented. But what we're assuming now, we're using 1.5 million or 1.3 million and change in fund balance this year to balance the 2015 budget. The audit, when you look at just our revenues and expenditures, we came out actually somewhere near $800,000 to $1 million under budget, which is more than we told you the last time we knew about it. So as the audit's further gotten down, we have a better idea of that number. So we did very good in 2013. However, what the audit's going to show too is that some of the investments made by the Treasurer's Office are showing a negative value right now of around $2 million. The return on that is guaranteed, and I believe it's a 3-year investment. But for auditing purposes, they have to show us as a $2 million loss. So when we tell you about the $1.5 million left over, we're taking that into account as if it's not a loss, because it's guaranteed return on the principal. But the message there at the bottom is the prudence, the things we've done in the past have bought us time, and time is on our side now. It's a very favorable circumstances as property values appreciate. And so that's the chart of what the fund balance projection looks like. And this one shows us extrapolating out that use of fund balance over 16 and 17. We initially planned on $1 million this year, $1 million next. We have $1.5 million. So if we need to smooth out services next year, that ability is there based on and then long term, we show going under that cap of 24%. One of the challenges too is as the general fund budget goes up now, the reserve requirement of 24% increases. So you have 24% of 46 million versus 24% of 44 million.
Adam, does that 21% in 2019 factor in likely property value increases or not?
Only moderately. We haven't fully extrapolated out the 5-year revenue and expenditure plan. So once I do that, I think it may show more favorably. Yep, good question. Yes, Commissioner.
And it's been past practice of your revenue committee to be very conservative in your numbers, but then when we actually get to the year, we end up in the position we've been in the last 5 or 6 years. So it should be made aware that our numbers are conservative and we do our math, and then that way we do end up in a better position. And we do take into account typically things that most organizations don't.
Right, we have been conservative and we've been pretty accurate too. We've typically been within 0.1% of our revenue numbers. I had to adjust the scale over the last 6 years. We've showed you this number of employees per 1,000 residents or citizens here. Well, we've added in the road department, so the transportation department. So I've added their numbers to that. The blue line goes back even into their existence before we acquired them, and then adds into ours. And you can see they've been cutting back as well as us, but if you look at in 2015, we'll be basically 3.5 employees for every 1,000 residents we have in the community. That number's consistently gone down over the last 10 years, as you can see from that chart. These tables are really for your consumption over your own time, as well as for citizens who may be interested in looking at it on the web. So I won't try to read through these tables, certainly, but they are there. Keep in mind some of the differences in the bigger departments from 14 and 15. The major difference in the wages is because of the float that's taken out. The increase was from 13 to 14, and then we back out the float. So general government, judicial, if you see the bottom line, you're not going to see much of a change from the 14 to 15. And for anybody watching web or watching afterwards, the float is, for our larger departments, we assume some rate of turnover. So shortly after the beginning of the year, we back out usually between 2 to 4% amount out of the large budgets over $500,000 that accounts for turnover. And that goes into a contingency account. If it's needed to cover personnel costs, then it's understood that it's given back to the departments to do that. Otherwise, when we budget for 100% of filling of the seats. Other funds, just briefly, again, there's tables that follow these that you can look through at your own time, as well as all the budget documents will be posted by the end of the day. And you can look at each department's request and a recommendation. But with the Transportation Department now, all our funds accumulate around $91 million. So this is the other funds back from 13 to 15. And then just briefly to touch on the capital improvement program, this gets to be a challenge with lots of needs. And as I told you before, the Transportation Department is included now. Their transportation improvement plan only goes through 2017. So you don't see anything in 18 and 19 for their road projects. That's the big mauve color, let's call it, in the 15, 16, 17. So. And so if we look at the revenue sources by fund, we're spending almost $800,000 out of the Public Improvement Fund, almost 3 out of the Technology and Equipment, and the Transportation Fund for 15 is $3.6 million. The expenditure numbers, of course, match that. So I'll try to just touch on a couple of the brief ones, some of the ones within each category. In the Public Improvement Fund, we're talking about Runway Match Fund. We're talking about building renovations, mechanical, parking lots, fair grandstand, carport at the Human Services Building, preventative maintenance and elevator upgrades. The detail of these will be listed in the capital improvement plan, and I also have it with me so I can answer any questions. But Commissioner Elwell, did you have something?
I'm slow on the draw. Can we go back to page 27 for a second? And on line 267, typically called the JNet, I think, is what the Joint Narcotics that's the forfeiture?
Yep.
Or is that JNet?
That's forfeiture.
Okay, I was thinking that was JNet. Thanks.
Okay. And if we go into the Equipment and Vehicles Fund, we're looking at, we funded 6 police vehicles. We did have to, frankly, we had to push a lot of things back. The request was for 7. We've been funding 4 a year. And if you look at our size of our fleet, replacing 4 of a year does not keep them current. We're going to run out over miles on these things before they are slated to be replaced. So the request was for 7. We were able to fund 6 in this one, and I'm sure we'll be talking with the sheriff to figure out how to work within that. But there certainly was not money to fund all the requests that came in. So. There's some other parks equipment, financial system purchase. This is the first year we're paying for that over the next 3 out of the delinquent tax revolving fund. Printers and scanners, imaging continues to be important for us to stream flow the work process and deal with greater workloads with less people. Wireless access points and desktop software. Yep. Commissioner Duckham.
Does our armored vehicle at the Sheriff Department cost us any extra money to operate? I mean, I question why we even have an armored vehicle.
Are you talking about our Hummer?
Yes.
That was, as I understand it, I'm certainly not an expert on this one, but as I understand, that was donated to us by the federal government. And so I guess it's gas and maintenance on that is what it cost us. We do have our own shop, so it saves us money. We're down to parts and gas. So unless you take it out over the weekend, it's not too much money. But and then just jumping into the Transportation Capital Fund, they're looking at in 15 Boardman Road, O'Neill Road, Austin Road, Jefferson Road, County Farm Road, and the Hague Road Bridge is what's in the Transportation Improvement Program. In the full document, you'll see what's in there for 16 and 17 also. What's not addressed? We haven't addressed in this budget the airport landfill removal, and because we still need more information about the financing options. However, that is something that we have to resolve in 15. The other thing we haven't addressed probably sufficiently is the Cascades renovation. This capital plan program is relying on a couple of things. One is using the proceeds of the sale from the Woolworth building to go into the capital fund. And we've applied those to improvements here at the Tower building and also at the fair. There's not necessarily a correlation between that two, and it could have been applied to any place, any building, because the money's fungible. The other thing it relies on is that the revenue from the Jefferson Road property goes towards the parks, and that's where it's been placed as of now. So but even with that revenue, we only applied some of that to the Cascades renovation, mostly because the Champions team right now is working on that funding strategy and fulfilling it. So it's premature to say, let's try to put this much towards it or this much towards it until the Champions team makes a formal plan and budget for the revenues of that. What the piece that we don't know also on the general fund budget is the pension actuarial report. Last year, that was a big hit, but we had a large loss in market value. We really don't know what to expect with that. If it's favorable, it may help us address some of these other things like the airport or the Cascades. If it's not, we have to go back to the drawing board and figure it out. And so to wrap up, we are evolving as an organization, some amazing things going on. We implemented, as we committed to, a continuous process improvement model. Now not only was the first group trained, but then we turned around those students, made them teachers, and they trained other people in continuous process improvement. So we've not only gone out and caught fish, but we've taught people how to fish. We did our third citizen survey, and the community is using that data. I've had an opportunity to present to a number of groups, and they're very interested in using that data and using it as a benchmark to improve. And that continuous and process improvement was really the last hole of completing our organizational development. Now we've really just got to hone down on each one of these and refine them and finish them. We've got all the pieces that we were looking at for a long time in place. That process improvement model is being implemented through a quality council that's meet together. Their job is to make sure the training continues, to improve the continuous process improvement into the culture of the organization, to be a reference, an expert resource, and then also to recognize the successes through the organization and document them, because we put an investment into that, and we want to see returns when they work through different challenges and processes. Next steps, we post this document to the web, like I said, before the end of the day. The presentation is already there. We'll advertise over this weekend in the Sunday paper for a public hearing on June 17th, and then after which you'll have the opportunity to vote on it at the June 17th meeting if you choose to. Special thanks to, first of all, you for the strategic guidance and the difficult decisions that fall upon you. Mr. Overton, Mr. Latham, Rick Shealy, Don Bustamante, Delane is always a huge support in putting together this large document, and our intern from Baker College, Megan, was extremely helpful also. And it would be failed to recognize everybody if we didn't mention the support we give from our department heads and elected officials. So thank you very much.
In regard to information that's been shared with me, and I was asked to pass it on to the Board of Commission, there are several community leaders, specifically Monica Moser, that asked me to share with this board how valuable Adam has been in sharing the National Citizen Survey results with many groups and organizations within our community. Although it's a directive given to him by us to participate in the survey and carry out the responsibilities in the funds are allocated by us as well. It is appreciated throughout the community, and Adam is representing us well out in the community, and this information and current data is appreciated.
Want me to go there? Yeah, go ahead. I've been requested and asked repeatedly who are on the committee for the Cascades. I will be coming to the full board on Tuesday night to ask for the Board of Commissioners to authenticate these people and make this an ad hoc committee of the Board of Commissioners. The committee at this time that is involved is Mike Way, Mike Brown, Regina Funkhauser, Molly Kaser, Matt Augustine, Carleen Walsh-Lafere, Mark Schottmeyer, and myself. And we have other members that come and go but don't really want to be named. We have other people who want to be involved, but I think a formal process, since the Parks Board has given this body money to spend, and they're also going to be asked to raise money and also work through the bid process and present back to the Board of Commissioners the suggestion on the RFP and everything like that, that the board on Tuesday night take formal action to name this an ad hoc committee of the Board of Commissioners. And I'll be doing that, and those are the members that have been showing up literally every Wednesday morning for almost a month now, and have got rolled up their sleeves and have really gotten involved. And I think we're in a really strong position to get something done at the end of the construction season this year on that wall. Any questions of that? We've arrived at the second time for public comment, and I think we wore the public out. Seeing none, commissioner comments. I got Carl quiet. This is pretty good. I think we are adjourned.